Yeah, just tell everybody it's gonna... Oh,
I'm posting.
okay, I'm on the air now, so just going ahead and
They
switch
are.
it over to a different... Yeah.
Is that a different video?
No, I tried to upload to this, or I tried to select this one, but it timed out or did something stupid to...
That's weird.
Yeah. Let me find my phone here. All right. Everybody hang out for a second. I've got to update some stuff. We had some technical difficulties while trying to start this, so... I have to share it a few more places, or reshare the link that I already shared to begin with. Yep.
I just posted it in the Discord for us.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hang out for a second. I've got to reshare everything now. Elgato wanted me to update the software before we got started, and I tried doing it, but it said that my NVIDIA GeForce display controller or something was active and it needed to be shut off, and I couldn't figure out how to do that, so because there was nothing on. So the new press is amazing, Joe. All right, hopefully everybody figured out on the other link that the video was unavailable and has figured out how to navigate that and adjust to what we're doing here. So there's people filtering in here, so we'll give them a few seconds, but it seems like everybody's figured it out and this wasn't too big of a deal. So the drink of choice tonight is something that the wife picked out. I've been editing videos all day, and we didn't get to sleep very early last night, so I'm a little tired. So we're trying this Rowdy Energy thing. Apparently it's by Kyle Busch, and I'm not entirely sure that people really like Kyle Busch, but it's tasty. It's sour green apple, and it's natural stuff. It's not like sugar and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's got green tea, caffeine in it, and stevia, and whatever else. So it's probably still terrible. It's just not... Or it's probably still off, or it's probably still terrible, just not awful. So,
Well, Virginia asked if you're drinking another chocolate milk beer. I'm actually drinking chocolate milk.
oh, chocolate milk. So,
Yeah.
probably won't do the chocolate milk beer, but I do have some other stuff. Now
Just a second.
the real interesting thing here is that the wife and I were actually on vacation over the weekend. It was our anniversary Thursday, actually.
Nice.
And
Happy
so
anniversary, by the way.
thank you. We went to Branson last weekend, and normally we'd post stuff all over Facebook, but it turns out that, leaving on vacation and posting that you're on vacation isn't the greatest idea. It's just, hey, we're not home. Guess what? Just in case anybody got any ideas. But we just happened to be browsing around in a store down there, and we found this. It's a coaster that says, "I'd take a Nerf bullet for you." So we thought that was incredible.
There's Angel.
Yeah. Yeah, we thought that was ridiculously appropriate. So
Oh, that's fantastic.
So yeah, we had to get that.
I mean, how could you not?
Yeah. So anyway, once again, if you didn't know, we're live here with James Niffen Jr. James is
So,
James really should be the one running all this stuff. I'm just the monkey in front of the camera.
dude, it's your channel.
I mean, you've got all the links and everything, and you end up answering most people's questions on my Discord and whatever else. So, and I'm just glad this all works out. Because I definitely couldn't do it by myself, so...
Yeah.
Trying to get rid of that wrap, definitely not. Hashtag Baby Idle Pro. I thought it was a Baby Astrophysics to begin with, but then or Idle Pearl, not Pro.
Okay.
But nah, bruh. I'm pretty sure it costs $5. I'm pretty sure that the coaster costs $5. Anyhow, we're here to talk bowling, and I'm pretty sure that people want to listen to some bowling. So yesterday
Probably.
was the release date for the Parallax, the IQ Tour Nano Pearl, the Trend, and the MVP Attitude. Let's not forget the Attitude, because it seems like those are getting all the attention, and the Attitude's just kind of hanging out and happens to be with them, but I like it quite a bit, so we definitely don't want to forget about that one. So let's see, I've got several videos out about them. I did some comparisons. I've still got more coming. Also still working on the collaborations with DH Bowling. I think if I stream next week, I'm going to have them on to talk some stuff as soon as I actually get some of those videos done, and if we get back from a tournament in time. But anyway, we've been wanting to, the last couple streams I've said something about talking optimization. And so James actually did a video about all three of the new ones. It's a little bit longer video, but at the same time, it's a lot of good information, and you talk about several things in this video. So kind of explain this video that you just posted the other day.
Yeah, well, first off, I managed to make myself look ramblier than you are, which I think I deserve some kind of an award for that.
That's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive.
No, I just, so what I did, let me, I'm going to post a link to it.
Yeah, post a link in the chat.
Chat real quick.
And
there you go. All right, so it is posted in the chat. So basically what I did is I recorded the video and the audio for it. Was it 2 weeks ago, I think. I did everything on the same day. Drilled the three new balls, well, the three storm balls. I didn't have the Attitude at that point. So the Parallax, the IQ Nano Pearl, and the Trend. And so basically, I went into the shop, drilled the three new balls, and then immediately went out to the lanes and just turned the camera on. It was like, I'm just going to film myself learning these bowling balls.
Yeah.
And I compared them, excuse me, I compared them in that video to the Phase 2 and the Astrophysics, which just kind of general reaction traits of what I was expecting from those three, of the three new ones, I figured would kind of line up and be able to a pretty valid comparison without having to shoot for like 16 bowling balls all at once. And so then what I did is I went back and essentially did a commentary about 6 or 7 minutes for each of the three new balls, kind of talking about not just what I'm seeing, but how I'm seeing it and the process of how I learn what a bowling ball does. Because if any of y'all have ever watched some of Tom Sorcy's videos on YouTube, he does a really good job of this, of not just showing how to strike with the ball, but showing where you hit the limits and why. Because in my opinion, knowing the limits of a ball is almost as important, if not more important, than knowing what it's good at.
Yeah, definitely.
And so essentially I ended up, I think it was a 20 or 21 minute long video of me just literally freeform talking, no script or anything, just kind of explaining what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking as I'm testing all of these new releases, and kind of illustrating live, quote unquote, where the differences are actually showing up on lane, and talking through those as you see them on the screen is definitely a much more unscripted, kind of just free-form feel than pretty much any other video I've ever done. But I thought it was like, I probably won't do it exactly like that for the new releases, because it's a 20-minute video, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of value to be had from something like that, where it's explaining not just this is what I see, but this is where I see it and why and how.
Yeah.
And if you understand the limits of bowling balls, then that's another piece of the puzzle of knowing how they fit together. A good example of this is I carry a Phase 2 or an Axiom and an IQ 2 or Solid. Both of those are in my bag at all times. The shapes are similar, but the limits, what they're good at, what they're not good at, are different. And those limits have enough non-overlap to where it's pretty easy to figure out, okay, I'm close with the phase 2. It's just a little bit on the limit this way. So I can just go to the IQ2 or solid or vice versa.
Yeah, and so
So that was the general concept behind that whole video, was kind of explaining my whole theory of how I limit test bowling balls, see what they're good at, see what their ranges are. And as you learn that and kind of observe what the ball is doing, you can learn a lot about that as you kind of move around on the lane.
Yeah, that's kind of a big thing with optimization that I keep coming back to, is that ball up and ball down is kind of a general term to get you into thinking, okay, well, this ball's technically stronger than this ball's technically weaker than this ball. But you can have something like a phase 2, and then you can have an IQ Emerald, which is kind of technically a ball down. But the zones that they play from the best, and reaction shapes, and is this one as continuous as this one? So in a very broad sense, the IQ Emerald is a ball down from the phase 2, but it may not be the right ball down in the specific situation that you need it to be in. Because if you're in a phase 2 at like 4th arrow, and you need to ball down to something shiny that is also going to be good from 4th arrow, the Emerald may not be the ball for that. You may need to skip that and go down to like a High Road Pearl or something.
Or potentially go the other way and go to something with a bigger core, but still a net cleaner cover, like an Astro or a Trend, for example.
Yeah.
Or an Idle Pearl.
Yeah, well, you might shell down and core up.
Yeah.
Just to kind of balance everything out. And so I think it's very important to understand where these balls are going to fit, and how how everything else in your arsenal kind of fits together to begin with, and then figure out where the new balls are going to fit. I know it's always hard, and there's, you can watch several different videos, and different people can get different reads on the same bowling ball, and so it can be kind of challenging to begin with. But that's when you need to really develop a familiarity. There should be some kind of sense or continuity, or something that you can, something that's consistent about the videos, to say, okay, so if you get several different balls that you see on my videos or James' videos, and say, okay, well, this, his reaction is always a little bit earlier than they act for me, or they're always a little snappier than they are for me, or they're always whatever else. You can build a nice familiarity with what stuff is going to do, and have a better idea what it's going to do for you to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's cases of, like, I know it's kind of a running joke in the Discord, where if you like a ball set up one way, I should set it up the exact opposite way.
Yeah,
there are some balls where you're just like, this is, and slight spoiler here, but there are some times where you'll drill a ball and it's like the greatest ball in the universe, and I drill it and I throw it for 4 games, and I'm like, I hate this ball, I'm never throwing it again.
Yeah, which is great, because James will ask me, okay, so how should I lay this out? How do you think I should lay this out so that I can lay it out the exact opposite way?
That's literally what happened with the MVP attitude.
Yeah,
you were like, I love mine pin up, and I'm like, well, I can't drill a pin up anymore.
Yeah. Yep. But anyhow, ew, is that fruit? Yeah, there's all kinds of people in here. So, apologies now if we kind of ignore the chat, because I'm probably going to get a little too focused on what we're talking about here. But we're going to go down, and I am working on a Sport Essentials update for all these new balls that we've had coming out, because I did my Sport Essentials collection, which is done actually really well. I think I have my Sport Essentials total package video or whatever's got like 60,000 views, so that seems to be something that's really popular with people. So I want to update that. So I'm gonna, all the new stuff that we've gotten, I don't think I added the Omega in there, the Nuke, the Axiom, all these new ones that are out now, and then we've got the Rubicon that we're gonna be talking about next week. So there's a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna make one video to kind of cover and update all those at the same time.
Yeah. When did your last run of those come out? Was that before the UFO?
I think it was actually before the UFO. I think the video I posted was December, so it's...
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so it was...
You had the Evolve in there, I remember that.
Yeah, I did mention that, but I think the UFO, the nuke, the Axiom, all that stuff came out a little bit after the fact. So I need to go back up
Yep.
and update those. Everybody's kind of interested in that.
Yep.
And I have several other things. Timing everybody out.
Yep. Hey, they joke about timeouts. I can happily
Oh,
oblige them.
man. It's been kind of a running joke. I've done some streams for just my Patreon and Discord crew. And it's been a running joke where James just times them out. So, anyhow, so we're going to talk about the 4 new ones that came out yesterday. We're going to talk about where they're going to fit in the bag and kind of expand on James' video that he did. We're going to talk some MVP attitude. In addition, and just about some optimization in general, we gave you we spent a little time here talking about the basic idea behind it. Why a ball down is not necessarily a ball down for the zone or whatever you're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
But let's start at the top. Let's talk Parallax. It's got all new tech, and I think I did a live stream a couple weeks ago where we kind of talked about them to begin with. But you've got some more time on all of them. You've got videos going, and we've had a couple more weeks to play with them. So Parallax.
Sorry, Aaron, just a
And this is yeah, where he said spoilers. I may drill something and love it, and he might drill it and not get along with it. That's the Parallax.
saying I don't get along with this ball might be
A little too kind.
that. Yeah, I almost threw it in a dumpster last weekend.
Yeah.
So I think I touched on this some in the video I released yesterday. Is when I was doing initial testing of the Parallax, and just kind of the get to know you session.
Mm-hmm.
It looked terrible when I tried to circle the lane.
Yeah.
But, and this is the thing, and I think I've said this multiple times in the Discord, I've never had a shiny ASIM where I have a better look right of third arrow than I do left of fourth arrow. That just never happens, except for the Parallax.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up having was the first Marvel Pearl that I drilled was pin up, but a pretty weak pin. It was like 5.25 inches, something like that. So it was this really like kind of get down the lane and, nice, slow, smooth arc through the pins, pretty rolly, not really substantial, like not a monster change of direction. And if I needed to, I could just kind of move right and just shove it at the 3.6 pocket, and it would have a homing beacon behind the 8.9. And I had that same kind of feel just in a heavier rolling package with the Parallax. And like, I think I legitimately threw like 13 or 14 strikes in a row with that ball, almost shot a 300 in my second full game with the ball. So at that point, it was still getting back to what I said earlier about limit testing. Is understanding a ball's limits isn't just in one environment. Is like, I think you touched on this in your iCubed video that came out. Was that today that released?
Yeah, I put that out this morning.
Yeah, so you touched on this concept in the iCubed video where a ball might might even relate a little differently in different environments. And so because of that, learning a ball isn't just about throwing it in one center. And that was kind of why I intentionally approached my video as initial impressions, because that's exactly what they are, initial impressions. What I've found since, both in testing in both practice and competition, that I've probably thrown it at 4 different centers at this point, is with how much rev rate I have, I can't really stay right all that well in most situations with that ball.
Yeah.
So that means, it's a ball that's slower like that, but still clean, is going to tend to be something that's really good when it's on a lot of friction, but on the fresh, or on fresher oil. And so, that's how I've kind of approached using it. Is, if I'm in a place where there's friction, but it's still kind of fresh, and there's some volume in the fronts, then give it a shot and see what happens. That looks great for about 8 frames, and then I have 4-pin, and typical transition, ball starts checking a little early, 4-pin, nothing unusual from there. Normally, if, like, let's say I'm throwing a phase 2 or even an astrophysics, if I 4-pin, I'm generally moving at least 3 boards on my next shot.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get away from that early hook that I was seeing. If I 4-pin with the Parallax, and I moved 2 boards left, not 3, 2. So it's a smaller move because really a slower response ball
Yeah.
means the slower response in general means your moves are going to be smaller for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And so treating it as such, as a slower ball, move 2, make sure to roll it, and I puke 10 pin every single time. It feels like getting back to that theory of limit testing. It feels like I hit that limit of being able to chase it left really, really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, like, it either needs to be earlier or faster in order to be workable for me with how I like to approach the lane for the most part, or how I like to approach lane play. It's faster. Yeah, that's pretty much an astrophysics, and I actually compared it to the astro in my video.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, you're pretty much looking at like an omega crux and almost encroaching on physics territory.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I can see in it. I mean, we'll talk about it with you, but I can see a lot of value for other bowlers, especially if you have a little more axis rotation or if you're more rev dominant. I think it's going to be a fantastic ball.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, with my rev rate and my speed and how forward my ball roll is, it's got such a narrow range of use that I have a hard time seeing a lot of use for it personally. If I want to actually get more than 9, which I do.
Yeah, I would
and
think
so that's essentially my take on the parallax right now, if that makes sense.
I think with the combination of the speed and the revs, I think like you said, somebody either like I kind of like to slow roll it, and so I've said it's kind of the idea that my halo burn is, and I don't. The halo burn is something that I do kind of have to slow roll because if I just put it right into the spot, it is going to plaque 10 every single time. But it's something that I can get left with and kind of feather down the lane,
Yeah.
and you don't really feather anything. And so
feathering is not like on house shot. Like, I'm a firm believer that if you have strengths that are workable, you should play to your strengths.
yeah,
Mine is stand left and yeet it at the 5 board. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I do because I'm going to get there anyway, so let's just cut out the middleman.
yeah, I could see this being really good for somebody like Francois Lavoie, who plays that little feather shot better than just about anybody. I mean, with the idol at the U.S. Open last year, was just insane.
Yeah.
The way that he can get a ball to sit there, any ball of any strength, and they put a video out with him and the Axiom just throwing a couple shots, and it even boggles my mind how he can get something that strong to sit there that long and then still tip effectively on the back end. And so I think that the parallax would be great for him. Now, somebody like Kyle Troop, who tends to like to throw the ball like you do, just kind of yeet it right. And I think Kyle
He does to a certain extent, but Kyle, like, because I was actually talking with him because mainly after I had bowled against him on Dougie Vision a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
And he throws mostly like smoother symmetrical type stuff. Like, his bag for that weekend was phase 2, an Axiom, 2 or 3 IQs, a phase 3, high road pearl, like really smooth round type of shapes.
Mm.
So I actually think the parallax might fit really well with that.
Mm-hmm.
As like you need a little more core than something like an IQ tour, but not as early as a phase 2 or an Axiom.
Yeah, and
that middle ground for him.
I could see it working for the tour guys too, because they kind of tend to favor smoother stuff anyway, and it acts more like it acts almost more like a symmetric ball. So I think it's something that they're going to be able to get away with because the cover strength is still. I mean, it's a strong cover, and I think that's what you were saying. It either needs to be earlier, or it needs to be quicker.
Yeah.
Or
which there's, and I when I shot my actual review video for it, I compared it to the Omega Crux as well.
Mm-hmm.
And have you drilled? Because you tested the parallax lefty. Have you drilled an Omega lefty? Or
no, I haven't drilled an Omega lefty, but I've got a pretty good idea how it would look. But I think
I feel a lot of similarity in the shape between those two balls.
Uh-huh.
It's just the Omega's a couple feet earlier.
Yeah, and I did,
which I think is mainly surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really it. As soon as the Omega shines up, I think the parallax is stronger overall, but very similar ideas, very similar looks on the lane, very similar zones that you'd play them from.
Yeah.
So So yeah, I think that that's kind of the story of the parallax, and I haven't really thrown it a whole lot more. I've been every time I go out to bowl, it's there's new balls and new stuff I'm filming for and whatever else. So
Yeah. Well, it's tough for me because with coronavirus and not being able to get out and practice
oh
as
yeah,
much. It's like
now Buffalo Carry shut down
I've
again. So.
it's yeah, my home center unfortunately is opted to shut down again because lawyers and not wanting to get the pantsuit off of them if something does go wrong, essentially.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate, but I also sympathize with them wanting to be able to stay open long term.
yeah, yeah.
But it's definitely like that's been a struggle recently. Is I've got less than 10 games on all four of the new releases,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been taking them pretty much every single time I've gone to the lanes anywhere. And even then, it's just like either I'm bowling in a tournament for score or I'm getting like 5 games of practice in once or twice a week, and that's just kind of struggling a little bit right now with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things where people will say, "Oh, well, I don't see any of the pros throwing the new stuff yet." Well, they're out there bowling for money, and so when you go to a tournament, you kind of want to throw the stuff that you have a lot of familiarity with, and even if it looks good, you may not know all the little nuances
Yeah.
here and there to it. I mean, like something like the parallax, it might have a bigger footprint on the lane. It might beat the pattern up a little bit faster. I think that's something that Mr. Bill mentioned too. Is that yeah, and that's something that I noticed a lot with the Crux Prime too, with the bigger footprint of spec. It picks oil up off the lane faster, and so if you don't know something like that, you might find yourself losing money just because you're not familiar enough with the ball yet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I've had to kind of think about is like, yes, I've taken the new stuff with me, but and I'll give it a few shots in practice, but unless it feels like I've got a lights out look with it, then or I get essentially like in the singles tournament I bowled a couple weeks ago, I had 3 free games to practice because I led one of the qualifying squads.
Yeah.
So I had the leaders of each qualifying squad got an automatic seat into the elimination bracket on Sunday,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but we still had to bowl for seating position.
Okay.
And so my first game, I started on the hardest pair in the building, started on 1 and 2 and shot like 170. So I'm like, well, I have 2 free games of practice. Let's make this count.
Yeah.
And so that was a chance to essentially battle test the parallax in that case. And that's one of the times when I went 4-pin, 10-pin. So it's finding the times when I can to test stuff, but at the same time, my travel bag right now is a bunch of classic stuff. Phase 2, IQ Solid, Astro, Emerald, High Road Pearl Plastic. There's nothing groundbreaking there, but they all just work. So, and I think that's what the pros fall back on a lot of times too, is stuff that they know, stuff that they trust, stuff that they know will work.
Yeah, even then, I mean, they're bowling for livelihood. So if we go to a tournament and lose a couple $100, it sucks. But I mean, you go to work on Monday and you're good. They're bowling for their livelihood, so it's a little bit different. They need to even pay that much more attention to everything that's going on, and so they just can't afford to. Oh, let's take a look at this and see what happens. So. All right, so that's Parallax. I think it looks pretty good for Angel. She kind of slow rolls it, and as long as she stays a little bit further to the right, like you were saying, it's one of those that it's a shim type of ball. And then, of course, on the left side, it hooks a little bit more, and the back ends are a little bit stronger, and so it gives me a pretty good look. Just because I can still keep my angles tight with it. It rolls soon without like hooking terribly soon, and then the extra back end strength kind of gives it a little bit more punch down lane.
Yeah.
So I think that the use cases would be totally different for me if I had it right-handed per se. I wouldn't ever be using it on the fresh. It'd be something where I'd be using in the same application as my Halo burn, wait until the lanes get disgusting, and I'm fading fifth arrow and just doing that little feather look and just needing something to clear the fronts and then tip a little bit down lane.
Yeah, and that's a good highlighting too of how knowing whether someone is a righty or a lefty can drastically impact what equipment selections are being suggested. Because what you're seeing on the different sides of the lane, like as a lefty, you're probably never going to throw a high road pearl, for example. Or if you do, it's going to be to clear the fronts on fresh.
Yeah.
Versus me, I'm never touching the high road pearl before game 4 ever on anything.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah,
I've got mine set up to be like clean and like boom for days.
Yeah,
but still
that's
get through crispy mids.
that's a good point too, because a couple of my favorites when I was lefty the first time was a High Road Pearl and an IQ Tour Solid, but I used the High Road Pearl on the fresh, and yeah, I'd never touch it on the fresh on the right side. That just would
Yeah,
never happen. But when the High Road Pearl starts going a little bit longer, you start getting a little bit of carry down, or start breaking that sharpness on the back end when the lanes kind of start to mellow out. Then that's where I'd go to the IQ Tour Solid, which on the right
yeah,
side it'd be totally the opposite. I'd start with the IQ Tour if I happen to be using it, and then I'd bowl down to the High Road Pearl when the track started burning.
yeah, exactly. So I think a good kind of summary point to wrap up our conversation on the parallax is Mr. Bill said a few minutes ago, parallax like to be jammed down the lane, not hooked
Yeah.
or shaped.
Uh huh.
Like it's not a big directional change ball.
Yeah.
I think for most people, I think the quicker you can come to grips with that and kind of see that and figure out how to work with it, the better off you'll be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so that is the parallax. I think that again, it's going to be one of those that you're either going to love it or hate it. I don't think that it's going to be something like the trend where the majority of people are going to like it. Yeah, yeah. I like mine quite a bit. I've heard from a lot of people that say that they like theirs, and I've heard from a lot of people that say, well, this thing's just, I had to put surface on it, and that me thinking about putting surface on that ball is just like, no, please, dear God, don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of those love it or hate it type balls. So speaking of the trend, let's go on ahead and flip on over to the trend. I think that
Or
it's
going to
going
the trend. Nice.
yeah, so I think it's going to be a much different story than the parallax. I think the vast majority of people who throw the trend are going to like the trend. Now, whether or not it is the best idea for them, I said in my comparison that I just did to the promotion that when most people come into a pro shop looking for a ball for league, they describe something like the trend.
Yep. 100%.
So I mean, it's a big course of metrics that it's continuous. It smells good. It's pretty. It's shiny. They want something with a lot of back end that's got a decent amount of hook, but nothing crazy. And so the trend is going to fit most league patterns for most bowlers. It's just pretty simple math, and kind of the vein of the Idle Pearl, the Astrophysics, the IQ Emerald, stuff like that, Marvel Pearl. It's just kind of that type of ball.
Yeah, it's just kind of the gets the job done type of reaction. Yeah, the trend was it's exactly what we expected it to be. Honestly,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
is pretty low RG, pretty high diff, symmetric, and R2S Pro.
Uh-huh.
Pretty like I think we both pegged it as literally the direct in between of the Astrophysics and the High Road Pearl.
Yeah.
Pretty much as soon as we saw the specs, because the RGs are almost right in between. The diff is about the same, and it's symmetric, and the High Road Pearl is symmetric with the Astro ASIM. So it was so I have a hard like R2S Pearl with factory polish is generally way too clean for me. So, and I think you can kind of see that in my video that I posted, is that with the factory polish, it was just going way too long. And so I hit it with a 2000 pad just kind of lightly in the video, and then more after. And I did that, it got way better. And now it's actually like, it might not make the cut for my core 6-ball bag, but if I'm taking like 8 or 9, then that's kind of one of those alternate look type of balls that might just kind of get the job done when I'm kind of in between a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've got to get used to on the left side of the lane too, is using surface more, because I like shiny stuff. My head's just programmed to like shiny stuff because I like to slow roll the ball, and the shiny helps me get the ball down the lane and control the tip on the back end. But on the left side, the trend is too flippy. And so if I did take like a used 2000 pad to it and smooth it out, I think it would improve my look tremendously. Yeah. Over on that side, it's a little bit too strong for me right now still, so I'm probably going to be favoring more IQ, electrifies, stuff like that. But at the same time, this is something that you can look at as far as optimization goes, and I mentioned it in my video, is that it's incredibly similar to the Idle Pearl, but where they like to play on the lane for me feels a whole bunch different. Like the idle pearl, all the idles like straighter angles. If you can keep them with straighter angles, or if you put a bunch of hand into it, like the guys on tour, that's why you see the idles show up so much, is because it's early, it's strong, but it's smooth, and it doesn't necessarily want to take out the 7-pin down the lane, so they can control their angles a whole lot better with it, versus something that just wants to pick up and go through the 7-pin, more like a phase 2 or something. And so that's why I think you're starting to see stuff like the idle. Well, the trend feels like that more continuous type of ball that just wants to hunt for the 8-pin or hunt for the 7-pin or something, where the idles like to stay a little bit straighter on the lane. So though you can look at those two and say that they're sideways into each other and that they're very similar types of ball reactions, the zones that I would use them in on the lane and the situations, because of the zones they like to play, are going to lend them to be pretty different as far as use case goes, for me anyway.
Yeah. Earlier is the idea of when you're in a stronger ball and you need to ball down, do you downshell but stay in a similar core? Do you downshell but core up? Do you downshell and go to a weaker core? I don't find myself, at least with how I end up approaching lane play a lot of the time, I don't find that downshell staying in the same core type of move to be in play very often. Like I go phase 2 to an astrophysics to, maybe like a hustle link or a high road pearl. Like those are not uncommon sequences for me at all. But that's because as I'm ball changing, like I'm also having to shift zones. And so the way I've got my bag set up, whatever it may be, is this configured to not just cover ball up, ball down, but also kind of think about the zones and optimal ranges of use for each of those balls.
Yeah, and the astrophysics and high road pearl is an interesting one too, because they like playing the same zone. So even though on paper the high road pearl, I mean, they still got the same cover, so that's going to be a big part of it. But as far as cores, pretty wildly different. And you could put probably 2 or 3 balls in between the Astro and the high road pearl on paper. But when you're talking about zone usage, I wouldn't go from something like an Astro to an Emerald. That's probably, I mean, you would skip straight down to the high road pearl if you want to stay in the same zone on the lane, have a similar look overall. Instead of doing this one's technically a ball down from this and a ball down from that, but they just don't. Astro and Emerald don't live in the same zones on the lane, period, even though it's technically a better fit in between the Astro and the high road pearl.
Yeah, and I mean there have been times where like I'll start playing straighter with something like an Emerald, and then as I chase it left, that's another of those balls that doesn't like to be forced into massive directional changes. So that's when I'll actually sometimes even just stay in the same or similar cover and core up to be able to make the corner from deeper angles.
And that's
so like Emerald to maybe an idle pearl to a trend, maybe even to an astrophysics. That's just to get that extra kick down lane that I'm not getting from those bigger launch angles.
And that's something that's a little counterintuitive too, is that I could see going from the Emerald to the trend as you move left. Most people think, okay, well, the lane's, the track's starting to burn up, I'm getting left, I need to ball down. And a lot of times, especially on house shots, that's the opposite of what you need to do, because the track may be burning, but you're moving into the highest oil concentration. House shots have a lot more oil inside most of the time than even heavier volume sport patterns do, because the sport patterns are going to be flatter. House shots are a bunch of oil in the middle and not a whole lot on the outside, and so most of the time when you find yourself moving, you do need to ball up the vast majority of the time on house shots to get something that's going to pick up sooner and roll sooner in all that sludge in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
just
you're
want to make
good.
sure
Yeah,
nothing blows up over
I'm
there.
completely ignoring it. I'm completely
Yeah.
ignoring it.
Um,
Yeah, is
I
there any?
think. Let's see. What else do we need to talk about with the trend?
And that's the weird thing is there.
Yeah.
It's such a simple, and I know that you didn't. Again, you didn't really get along with promotion because it's another type of
Spec.
reaction. Yeah,
That's why I didn't get along with the
yeah.
promotion. Let's got the crap here.
But
That's a good point. That's something I did want to say
okay, yeah,
is when I saw the trend and saw what it was, I was pretty excited for it because I wanted to see what that core would do in a cover that I actually get along with.
exactly.
And it's been fairly impressive, honestly. Like it's a pretty smooth, like it's not a super duper jumpy response off of friction, or if it is, that feels more dictated by cover than core. And it feels like I can just keep moving left and I don't run out of ball.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of recovery, but without being uncontrollable. So in that sense, it's actually like I can see it working very well as a step down, like like stay in a similar core but downshell type of ball from something like a phase 2 or an axiom very, very easily.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing with the trend is, again, we talk about bowling math not really working out. The math works out perfectly on this. I mean,
yes,
that's the other thing that a lot of people are oh, it's another Belmo ball not touching with a 10-foot pole, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter whose name's on the side of the ball. This is different. And the ProMotion was different from the other two as well, and I really like the ProMotion. But at the same time, that was still one of those things, you're either going to get along with spec or you're not. And so if somebody says, well, I absolutely hated that ball, well, I can buy that. Just because it's one of those more specific use types of balls. But the trend is just, it's like, I mean, R2S Pearl and a big symmetric core, I mean, there's just... ignore the name on the side of the ball, ignore everything else. I mean, just whatever you know about R2S Pearl over the last decade, and something like the centripetal core. Just imagine Marvel Pearl, R2S Marvel Pearl instead of R2X, or anything else that R2S Pearl's been on. I mean, it's just going to be a pretty good reaction for the vast majority of people out there.
Yep, agreed. It was so you mentioned earlier that the Parallax is going to be a very polarizing ball. I think the trend is, but for a very different reason.
Yeah,
that Belmo logo on the side.
Yeah, it's going to be going to be up here. It's not going to be. So yeah, that's. Yep,
yeah,
I would
which
agree.
is unfortunate because I don't think we would be having this conversation if it was in the master line and didn't have the Belmo logo on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
I legitimately don't think we'd be having that thought.
Yeah, yep, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to touch it, even though they could love the astrophysics, they could love the Idle Pearl, they could love the Marvel Pearl, and they won't touch the trend with a 10-foot pole or anything else because it has that Belmo logo on it.
Yep.
So,
and I mean, I'm essentially like I'm 0 for 3 on the first 3 Belmo balls. Timeless, I had no idea what it was doing the last 15 feet of the lane.
Yeah.
The drive, I saw 2 shots with it, and I knew I was never going to be able to use it, so I didn't even bother.
Yeah.
And the ProMotion had spec, so that was gone.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm 0 for 3 on the previous Belmo balls, but I think this one's legit.
But yeah, you know enough to know to forget, and it's like, okay, well, again, the math is so simple on this, so it's like, okay, well, this is a different story. So, and that doesn't mean that everybody's automatically going to love it. There's some people that are going to get it, and this ball sucks and whatever, and there's a lot of people that are going to want to hate it just because, well, I'm going to give a Belmo ball one last try, and they go into it wanting to not like it, and so they find any reason that they can. But it's astrophysics, all the ones that we've already mentioned. It's kind of in the same vein as those.
Oh, hey, Cassie's here.
Oh, sweet. Hey, Cassie. You're kind of late. Yeah, that's not too bad. 45 minutes. I'm sure you'll catch up, though. I'm sure you'll go back and watch it tomorrow. All right, so let's go on ahead and move to the IQ Tour Nano Pearl. Mouthful. There's not really any other way to... anything else they really could have called it, I guess. So, yeah. And so this was... I'm a big fan of Nano Pearl. I won't shut up about it. We've gone over that. I won't shut up about not shutting up about Nano Pearl.
Yeah, can
But
confirm. Story checks out.
yeah, but I remember when it was first announced, and I kind of told you, I'm like, oh god, this is going to be awful
Yep.
because Nano Pearl is early and smooth. It's an early and smooth core, and I'm envisioning like Pearl ProMotion, which I like the ProMotion, but again, it's one of those things where I thought that I would probably get along with it, but as much as I talk about Nano Pearl, I'm like, well, that's the last core that I would want to put it on because I don't think we've seen Nano Pearl since the virtual gravity Nano Pearl in like
Yep.
2012 or something. And so I'm thinking, God, this is like the worst way to reintroduce this to the stateside market is to put
Nope.
that
It's
cover
fantastic.
on that core. Yes, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I was
Shut up
completely
and take my money. I'll be ordering more of that ball.
yeah, I was completely wrong about it. Um, and I
Yeah.
think it's and another thing I don't like is pearl balls with surface on them. Especially fact, I mean, if you take a pad to break the shine, that's different than like a hard, 2000, 3000 grit surface, and so that's something else that was just like, oh my god, it's a smooth and slow cover on top of a smooth and slow core, and then they sanded it. Like, dear God, what are we doing here? And it's
Yeah.
actually amazing, and I think that it's actually pretty good out of the box, even. So it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's an IQ Tour idea that hooks more and doesn't quit. I mean, it keeps and it's very matchup black pearlish, and everything is completely and totally different about the numbers and the cover types and whatever else. But the look on the lane, the black pearl did something too. It just picked up and it kept going and kept going and kept going. It's almost like how when you throw a plastic ball for like a strike ball and it
Yeah.
doesn't hook a whole bunch, but it never
It
burns
doesn't
any.
stop.
It
Yeah.
doesn't stop. It doesn't burn any energy. So if you give it long enough, it's just going to pick up and keep rolling and keep continuing and keep continuing. And it's
Yeah.
that type of an idea, but in a resin package. So
I don't know how it does that.
I, I I'm
That's
confused.
yeah. I mean that's another good example of where the bowling math doesn't add up.
Yeah,
Is it it shouldn't do what it does. Like my
yeah,
IQ Solid and my IQ Emerald, like yes, they're both pretty smooth balls, but they both also definitely hit a point where they stop and tumble.
yeah,
And I don't have that with the Nano Pearl, no matter how forward I get with my hand or how
yeah,
slow I throw it. Like it keeps continuing.
yeah,
Like it's you would think on paper that it'd be just kind of a higher traction IQ Tour Solid essentially,
yeah,
where your IQ is close, but you just need a little more teeth in the first 30 feet of the lane. You still want the ball to just be like really smooth and controllable and not do a whole lot down lane.
yeah,
When in fact, like as I've gotten some games on my Nano Pearl, it feels like where it's going to fit in my bag is kind of an intermediate piece, almost akin to an Idol Pro, where my true like big cover sanded stuff, like a physics or a phase two or an axiom or an Omega crutch, stuff like that,
yeah,
those covers are too much. But then my actual clean covers, stuff like an astrophysics, an emerald, a trend, idle pearl, etc., those are too clean.
yeah,
And the cover on the Nano Pearl just seems to kind of find that sweet spot of clean enough but not too clean,
mm-hmm,
fast enough but not too fast, but it also doesn't ever really roll out. So it's got some kind of tricks up its sleeve in terms of being able to open up the lane that you wouldn't think would be possible with that core.
yeah. And that's really the thing is because again, Nano Pearl, I love it, and it does very Nano Pearl things, but that core is what trips me up about it because Nano Pearl it doesn't burn energy on friction. That's what I love about it. But at the same time, like you said, the IQ that Centripetal C3 control core isn't something that you think, okay, well I'm just going to get into fifth arrow and watch it take out the 8-pin. It
Yeah.
just not, and the IQ Tornado Pearl does that. It's relentlessly continuous, and I think it actually likes more angle. Where the other IQs, if you can keep your angle, even if you get a little bit deeper, you can't give away the pocket too much. You can't, bend the entire lane with it. You can't chuck it out to the 5 board and watch it rip through the rack, unless you're doing some interesting things or you're Kyle Troop throwing the emerald.
Yeah,
But
why do we have to bring that up?
yeah, man,
Moving on, moving on.
yeah, yeah. But man, it just
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but It's absolutely fantastic. Let's see. Cassie said Dad got the IQ Nano Pearl yesterday. Went and bowled this morning on the shark pattern. He seemed to like it a lot. Yeah, he would. My buddy Greg Atwater would definitely like that type. He's kind of a slow roller guy. He likes to get in there third, fourth arrow and just kind of slow roll it. And with something like that, that's going to pick up and head right through the pocket. He doesn't typically get along with stuff like the MVPs or something. Those are going to get to the spot and burn up or quit or whatever else. He likes something that he can just kind of feed to the spot and slow roll and watch it walk back up. So
Yeah.
I would imagine. Mono Chim, what's up, Lou? Is Mochachi like no time? Yeah. For real, for real. Do you think that the IQ Tour Pearl is an IQ Tour Solid for today's patterns? Yes and no, because again, with the...
Is that the net? And I actually just replied to that in chat.
Okay.
Is that about the Nano Pearl or the Emerald?
Yeah.
I think that's the...
I think he's asking about the Nano Pearl. Is it an IQ Tour Solid for today's patterns? Yes and no. I mean, it's got more traction than the IQ Tour Solid, but I would never use the IQ Tour Solid from the same angles. Like even on the left side of the lane, something like that, you'd figure it'd be great to just kind of fire right down the side. But it likes getting deep.
Yeah,
it just likes getting
deep.
The
IQ Solid of today is the Phase 2.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with that.
If you wanted to draw that comparison, I think the Phase 2 is much closer to that type of ball.
Yeah. Yep. Even the Idol, it shares some of those similarities with liking more controlled angles. Don't give away the pocket. Whatever else, but this one, I mean, you can give the pocket away as much as you want to, as long as you give it a second to get back up the hill. It's got that kind of relentless continuation like the Phase 2 does. If you give it just an extra second to get back up the hill, it just, as much, the more time you give it, the more windy and continuous it's going to be. So,
yeah, exactly.
But, so that one's, after we talk about the trend and the math doesn't really work out on that one, the IQ Tour Nano Pearl is a different story. So
yeah, well, the math worked on the trend; it didn't on the Nano Pearl.
Yeah. So yeah, those are both great balls that I think the majority of people are going to like. And I said in my review, if you've ever thought, well, gosh, I really like this type of look, but I wish it was continuous. I wish I could stay with it longer. I wish whatever. Well, that's all been answered, and I think that. Just like the Phase 2 made people want more phases, I think the IQ Tour Nano Pearl is going to make more people want that cover stock. Because,
more IQs, yeah, and that cover.
More IQs, period. But that, I think, shows off the difference the cover stock makes, because it's the same core as the other IQs, but just the difference in that cover stock makes a huge difference. I mean, huge difference with a lot of different things.
I just kind of riffing off of that is your, was it the IQ Tour Fury?
Yeah.
That might bring this back into play.
Yeah. I'll send something back to Chad.
Shameless plug time. I forget the exact formula, but can you talk through it again?
R3S Hybrid, the Phase 3 cover. I wanted that on the Centripetal C3 core. I want my IQ Tour Fury. But and they spend so much time in R&D. I think Chad and I send some stuff to him, and he'll ask me my thoughts on some stuff here and there. But they do such a good job of stuff in house, and they test stuff so much that you can put something on a drawing board, or I can send him an idea for a ball or something else like that. And it's more just chatting, or just fun to talk about or fun to theorize about. But it's not quite as simple as saying, okay, well, we're just gonna put this core and cover together and put it in production. It's going to be fine. It doesn't really work out like that. So,
yeah.
As far
Bill
as,
summarized it well again in chat. IQ Nano Pearl was meh, and I couldn't figure it out for 5 or 6 shots. Then the first nudge left. Oh my gosh. Then another step left, and then a bunch of hard emojis.
Yeah. So it's something that doesn't make sense for an IQ Tour to do, and that's where we can get into some optimization to where this actually fits in the bag. And that's why I made that iCubed video, because I think that they could all fit together in the same bag. And then being what we talked about earlier with, the Emerald can either swing a whole lot more of the lane than the Tour Solid can, or if you get into different situation, it would actually play outside of the Tour Solid. You'd actually be deeper, playing more lane, or getting more responsiveness, more reaction, more hook out of the IQ Tour Solid. So those are kind of sideways into each other, but very, very situational and conditional as to which one is going to be quote unquote stronger.
Yeah.
While, and they're going to handle all the stuff, you know, outside of third, maybe fourth arrow if you got a bunch of hand. And the IQ Tornado Pearl is going to give you that same type of look. But it's gonna play a whole lot further inside.
Yeah, for sure. I had some other thought. Oh yeah, I know we've talked about this before, and this is where your report card videos come from. This is why I don't rush to put out review videos. Is a ball that's dead fresh versus a ball that's even got 10 games on it. It's gonna change. It's gonna progress. It's gonna morph over time. And I think the Nano Pearl is a really, really good example of that. Is when it was fresh out of the box, I was looking at that ball reaction. I'm like, this is 3 feet earlier than my phase 2. What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Like it's 3 feet earlier, but it's slower, but it changes direction more than my phase 2. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, wait, if it's that much more now, if I get some lane shine on it, that might get it to store a little more energy, project a little better. Then it might actually come into a better window of usability. That's exactly what happened. So I got another 10 games on the cover, and now it's actually a much more throwable shape for me because it's not that super fresh surface. So it's a good example of why, like, you should always take time to learn a ball and not just judge it on a couple of games. Well,
yeah.
There are a few cases where, like, if you know, you know. Like, there's about 3 games for the parallax for me, but that's because it's too clean and slow at the same time.
Yeah.
And any changes that I make are going to bring it on top of other stuff that I throw and like better already.
And generally, you know how things are going to settle in too. When you drill so many balls, you think, okay, well, if it's like this now, like something like the Tornado Pearl, it's like, okay, well, if this gets a little lane shine on it and gets a little bit further down the lane and shapes a little bit more, I think we can work with this. But if you're looking at something like the Parallax and thinking, oh God, it's too clean and slow now, what's going to happen when the cover breaks in? This is not.
It's going to slow down more.
This is not trending the right direction. So
yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where it's like I'm going to continue to tinker with the Parallax, but it's going to take a lot for it, honestly, to make my trusted, like, going to try and win money tournament arsenal.
Yeah, and I think
versus I have zero hesitation with the trend in the Nano Pearl in that regard.
Yeah, I think something like the Parallax, and that, again, it goes back to my Halo Burn. I don't use it very often, but when in the situation's there, it's better than anything else. But is that worth occupying a spot in your bag? It is for me in Kansas City, because I know that, on the surfaces there, it's going to happen sooner or later. If there's enough games, I'm going to get to that ball just because everything is dirt there. But if I go somewhere else and it's, fresher, newer, lower friction surface, I may never see a Halo Burn type situation. Or like the Marvel Max SE, I love throwing it, but it's never it's never the right ball reaction for me. That might be something to where you would like that one a whole lot better than I do, but I love the way it reacts. It just, I never have the situation for it.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's switch gears to the MVP attitude, and let's go on ahead and give it some love, because I think it's fantastic. And
I'm going to let you kind of lead the conversation on this, because I think you understand that ball a lot better than I do. I've got 2-3 games on mine total, so I'm still learning it very much so.
Yeah, I think I put about 5, 6, 7 games on it while I was filming for it. Now, granted, I've only used it at the one house so far, but this one house...
But it struck a ton.
Yeah. It was one of the faster videos that I've ever filmed, and then when I bowled that little local tournament, where I bowled 6 games with it a couple of days later, and it just obliterated that house. And that's something that... so Gauge Center has got the quickest back ends that I've ever thrown a ball on, ever. I mean, stuff just gets down there and screams. And it's got twister pins. And those two things do not go together. Westridge twister pins are fabulous, because twister pins like slower, smoother reactions because they tend to fly a little bit. And if you have too sharp of a reaction going into them, the ball's just going to cut right through them. And there you're going to have 4 9s, and you're going to have all kinds of these weird leaves. and 9 pins and whatever else. And so
You're gonna get back road and 4.9 to death essentially.
yeah, so the combination of twister pins and gauge bowl is not good.
Yeah.
And because of the sharpness of the back ends, you don't have a whole lot of forgiveness on the lane either. If you get the ball out a little bit quick, it's going to fly back, but it's going to burn up and it's going to quit, and that's not great for twister pins. If you get it inside a little bit, it's going to pick up and go, also not great for twister pins. And so the attitude is something that is very Wrecker-esque, because the Wreckers were kind of that chuggy, heavy rolling, but not like crazy on the back end like the MVP and the MVP Pearl. I think the MVP and the MVP Pearl have a similar idea to the Wreckers, but are a lot quicker on the back end, or a lot more aggressive, a lot more ball overall. And the Wreckers were more kind of like baby daredevils.
Yeah.
They were kind of they're slow and tumbly, but they do blend the back end enough to make
Well, the
everything.
Recum is literally a baby daredevil.
Yeah, yeah.
I drilled the daredevil in the Recum before I came out to Kansas City
Yeah.
for those tournaments back in June.
Uh-huh.
And they stacked amazingly as like an up down of the same type of shape.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think
the Wrecker and the Wreck-It I always saw as a little heavier, a little more forward, kind of closer to the same vein of the MVPs that have come out so far.
Yeah. And so the attitude, even though it's a hybrid, I think it's 2 parts solid, 1 part pearl. But it does feel more like a Wrecker series ball versus an MVP series ball. So it feels like a solid Wreckum is really what the attitude feels like to me. It's earlier. It's still chuggy, but I think that DH Bowling posted something that it's chuggy, it's heavy rolling, and it hooks a lot, but it still clears the heads. I mean, it revs up pretty strong in the mid lane. But it's not one of those balls where you put down and it's instantly chewing. Something like the MVP, as soon as you put that ball down, it wants to go. As soon as it gets any kind of traction, friction, whatever else, it's going. And you can see that as soon as it hits the lane, it's just chewing and waiting for an excuse to hook a little bit. The attitude gets you down the lane a little bit further, and it revs up in the mid lane pretty strong. And then it's still a blendy but really continuous motion down lane, and so it acts like several different balls at the same time, so it's a little hard to describe the reaction. But what it did at Gauge Center is something. They used to call it Gauge Center because we had Gauge North and we had Gauge Center. Well, now there's no Gauge North, and so it's just Gauge Bowl. So we here in town all still refer to it as Gauge Center, even though it's Gauge Bowl.
Close enough.
But anyhow, I haven't had that good of a reaction in that house. They've had the new lanes for 6 years now, I think. I have not had another ball in that house just obliterate the place like that ball did. And it may be one of those things where if I take it to Westridge, it might be a different situation. It might be too smooth, too tumbly, too rolly to pick up and work very good there. But at the same time, I really don't think so. It feels like one of those balls that is going to it's going to control something like the pins and the sharpness of the back ends at Gauge, but it's something to where it's still early enough and it's still a strong enough of a motion or as assertive of a motion that it's going to react fairly similar from house to house. It's either just going to be stronger or weaker. Is that kind of the read that you get on it, to where it feels like you can trust it more house to house than some other stuff? Or
I've only thrown it at one center.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I'm taking it with me to the league, which is at a different center tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'll be able to at least throw it in practice some there and kind of feel it out a little more. Mine, so most of the time, especially on symmetrical stuff, I usually go pin like above the bridge. It's about a 4.5-inch pin to pat for me, and usually like a 2 to 2.5-inch pin buffer. I went 4.5 on the pin for this one, but a 4-inch pin buffer, which is puts it below the bridge.
Yeah.
So the thought for me was, number one, you like it pin up, so I have to drill it pin down.
Yeah.
But number two is, I was kind of envisioning this like mid-strength but still heavy rolling type of shape, but something that's not going to dig as much as like a phase 2 or an axiom. And so I wanted to kind of create this ball this reaction that would not be a super huge change of direction. That would let me just kind of like where you might use a really strong ASIM to like move left and kind of fade it through a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of have that same type of trick available, but not need to get to like fourth arrow to make that work.
Yeah.
So like when this tight, like when there's a lot of volume and it's a little tight down lane, I just kind of want something where I can, you know, roll it like 15 to 10 and just kind of let it pick up and tumble and basically face smash the pocket.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what I set up the attitude for.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's what it does for me.
Yeah. So that was kind of my idea with setting it up. And the few times that I have thrown it it seems to do that very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
My first game with it was no warm up on, what was the pattern? It's a 45-foot Kegel like challenge pattern. I think it was Big Ben or something like that. No, it was Route 66.
Okay.
No warm up, 249 clean.
Yeah.
And it was literally like, as long as I got it to between like 7 and 13 at the break point, I hit the pocket. But it was this like smooth, like really smooth, controllable. Like you mentioned how the MVP just wants to pick up and chew and go left as soon as it sees friction.
Yeah.
The attitude kind of felt, I'm guessing due to a combination of cover formula and layout changes.
Uh-huh.
The attitude felt like I could still see some of those same characteristics, but the different layout, the different cover, and the different surface, I think kind of helped slow that transition down enough to the point where it was slow enough to actually be usable off of friction.
Yeah, and that's something else that as my right arm has deteriorated, I noticed, or I noted that my rev rate in the attitude video was quite a bit lower than it had been for some other videos, but at the same time, I didn't need to really rev this one up. It was super easy to just kind of, I had like the typical kind of, you think about like the house shot hero that just kind of lets the ball, just kind of flips it out there or just walks it down the side. I mean, it's such an easy ball to do that with, to where I didn't feel like I had to help it, to rev it up, to keep it off the nose. I mean, some of the like the MVP, it's like, well, I have to do everything I can just to keep it right of the head pin. I mean, that's number one. And this, it's like, well, it's strong, but it's not jumpy. So I don't feel like I have to chuck it down the lane, but I also don't feel like I have to, get extra at the bottom to help it finish on the back end. It was one of those where I could just kind of walk up there and just kind of olay it, just kind of let it go and let it do its thing. And so I think it takes something like the MVP, which was, I mean, a pretty good ball. It just, for our kind of rev rates, unnecessary. I mean, but for the league bowler that just walks up there and kind of lets it out, the bowler that doesn't really understand what they're doing, but they do it really well. So it's one of those things where you can just kind of walk it up there and let it go. Just walk it up there and let it go. And it works so well for me. I ended up winning this tournament, and I don't ever win tournaments. And I just, we got into the step ladder, and it was like, and that's something at this house, to where you don't really put together several big scores in a row. You can put together a big score here and there, but it's most of the time you go like 210, 260, 210 or something like that. You don't go like 240, 240, 240. It's just not something that happens at Gauge. And I went 230, 220, 250 to finish out the 4-game qualifying. Why I didn't start with it, I will never understand, because I filmed the video and thought, okay, well, this is going to be great for a couple days. And I tried it, and I'm like, well, I got a pretty decent look with the Idol Pro, and it's done okay here before, and that didn't really work out. But then we got into the step ladder, and I go 299, 269, 244, and the 244 was it was a championship match, and I was working on 279, and all I needed to do was stay clean. So as long as I just don't do something stupid, then I don't, I was going into the 9th frame. I was in the 8th frame and was shooting 279, and so it was just, okay, just stay clean and get out of dodge, which it's usually a better idea to just go on ahead and strike, especially if you've, I struck 11 times in the game in the first game in the stepladder, and then I struck 10 times in the second game in the stepladder, and then up to the 8th frame, I had 7 strikes and a spare. So I don't know why I didn't just finish the game out and shoot 840 or something in the stepladder, but the games I had bowled against me were like 215, 190, and 215. So
those sound like the scores I put up when we practiced there last summer.
yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things where you find a shot, and then as soon as you have to start moving around, you have to completely change what you're doing. Yeah. And then once you get used to that, then they change again, and then you have to completely change what you're doing. So
now that I think about it, the only ball that I could strike with consistently when we practiced at a gauge last year was my MVP, the original.
Oh, yeah.
So, go figure. I just want to do a quick sidebar on this. Billy Langford asked a minute ago, how much surface does the Attitude have compared to an original MVP? So that's essentially just 3,000 grit versus factory polish. So hopefully you can see this well enough. This is my Reckham. And this is basically the same like factory level polish. You know, it's pretty glossy, pretty shiny.
Yeah, pretty shiny.
Well, it also looks like America, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
there's that.
America.
Yeah, America. This is the Attitude. So this is factory surface plus 3 games. So it's got, like, as you can see, it's got some shine on it, but it's still definitely got more texture to it. Like if I go to a darker part of the ball, you can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Where it's definitely got a lot more teeth from a surface texture perspective, even ignoring the fact that it is a different cover as well.
And I think that it's the same cover formula, but it's this year's version for the MVP Attitude versus the MVP, but also the MVP was only a 2-color ball, whereas the Attitude's a 3-color ball. And I think that with the MVP, with it being a hybrid, if it's a 2-color ball, it's half solid and half pearl. I think the Attitude is 2 parts solid and 1 part pearl, and so that's going to make it, even though cover designators don't matter.
I think you have that backwards.
Oh, okay, so it might be 2 parts pearl.
The purple is solid pearl, and the yellow orange gold, whatever it is pearl.
Oh, okay.
But I'm like 99% sure it's 2/3 pearl.
Okay.
So that actually, now that you bring up color pours, I'm going to pull up a question I saw in chat. This was back at the very start of the stream.
Oh yeah, somebody asked. I think it was Curtis.
Brian.
Yeah,
Brian Mercure asked.
Okay.
He's trying to keep his streak of good questions to you both.
Yeah. I remember seeing that.
What are your thoughts on multicolor swirl balls versus solid color stuff, like Attitude versus Nano Pearl? For reading ball motion.
I've actually talked to Chad about this, and I said, why does it seem like the solid cover balls are all rounder reactions? So something like an Idol Pro, like an Idol, IQ Tour Solid, Pro Motion, they all seem like very round reactions. But he said it may just be tricks on your eyes because the multicolored, more swirling balls look like just... There's more going on, and so you see them agitating and flaring all the way down the lane, and so they might look sharper, or might look more like a hook set type reaction, which the Idol Pro actually does. When I had that, I'll touch on this, but we can move past it quickly. I filmed for the Rubicon this weekend, and both the Idol and the Idol Pro, I think if they were multicolored, they would seem to be a different shape than they really are, because the Idol Pro does have a fair bit of punch on the back end of the lane, and once you do get in a little bit, it kind of does that hook set thing. So I think it is just kind of a trick on the eyes that it generally looks, solid color balls generally look smoother or rounder or whatever else, just because there's not a whole lot of visual interference, I guess is what you'd say. And I favor more solid color or darker color balls, but it's kind of interesting that on the left side of the lane, all the labels on the ball are most of the time put on the left side of the ball, so that when you throw them as a righty, you don't see all the labels swirling and everything. But there's so much stuff swirling all over the place on the left side. I kind of like to use a colored thumb slug to stand out and to kind of offset the interference. Even though it's colored, it's something that's more of a stable instead of seeing all the swirling and all the interference, there is one thing that I can kind of track.
Yeah.
So
So is OCD the right word? It might be. I'm really weird with seeing grips and slugs.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. For those who probably wouldn't even think much anything of this,
yeah,
white thumb slug that really contrasts and stands out.
yeah.
But notice it's a pin down ball.
Uh-huh.
So with pin down stuff, your axis point, like my PAP, starts about right there-ish on the ball
Uh-huh.
and migrates towards the thumb on pin down stuff.
Uh-huh.
I'm fine seeing the thumb slug rotating on the ball on pin down bowling balls.
Uh-huh.
because the thumb is usually the stabilization point.
Uh-huh.
So there's direct correlation there between starting to see the thumb stabilize more and actually it is correlation with ball motion versus with pin up stuff. The slug never pin up balls. Generally, the axis migration path is much closer to the fingers than the thumb, and so the thumb never actually gets to a stabilization. Gets like on a stabilization point when it's going down the lane. So it's just an extra bit of visual clutter to see a slug on a pin up ball.
Yeah.
But even more than that, I cannot stand to see grips on a pin up ball because the stabilization point is different on every single one. You know, like if it's an IQ2 or solid, it'll flare like roughly like it'll flare, 3-4 inches.
Yeah.
Which gets it about to my grip center line. Versus if I'm throwing a code black, the axis migration path literally is 7-8 inches total, which is getting it to the complete opposite side of the ball. And so it's a different look on every single ball. And because the migration path is close enough to my fingers, it looks like it's revving up quicker than it actually is, and it just completely tricks my eyes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm really weird, but I mean, it works out because I switched on your recommendation. I switched to using Turbo Quad Classic clears and all my stuff. So seeing grips is not a problem. It's just a matter of getting a slug that looks nice and blends in with the ball.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
So that's my rant on grips and slugs. My stuff is never going to look like Angel's, where she's got like pink and green and blue in a ball. That's never going to be a thing for me whatsoever in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah, yeah.
I have no objection to brightly colored stuff, but I do tend to prefer not as not super contrasty color schemes.
Yeah.
And if you look at my bag right now, it's about as boring can be visually. Phase 2, dark blue, dark red. IQ2 or solid, monocolor. Astrophysics might as well be monocolor because it's like gray, dark purple, dark blue. Emerald, basically one color. High Road Pearl, basically one color. So it's not by direct planning, but that's kind of how things are shaken out in terms of what I actually use a lot of the time.
Chad mentioned that too, is that they typically tend to go with darker color palettes, even if the colors are brighter colors, the tone is not bright. They might be lighter colors, but they're kind of the darker tone of those lighter colors, if that makes sense. I mean, something like the original Phase that's that yellow and blue and whatever else. Well, it's still kind of a darker tone. It's not a very bright yellow, or it's not a very bright blue, or something where Roto every once in a while goes with brighter colors.
But you mean brighter colors like this?
Yeah. Or something. There was another one. The High Wire was pretty bright too. Yeah. The yellow that was in the High Wire was not the Haywire. The High Wire was.
Oh, the Haywire was pretty bright too.
Yeah.
That yellow was pretty popped a lot for being a solid.
Yeah. Anyhow, so as far as optimization goes on the attitude, that one's a weird one because I can play all the way across the lane, and normally, I've talked about this a lot, but filming did a lot of damage to my mechanics because I'm trying to show what the ball looks like from second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever arrow, and a lot of the times, trying to get shots from straighter with the nuclear cell was a freaking nightmare. It wasn't until I got into fourth or fifth arrow that I felt comfortable with getting that ball down the lane, but I don't remember having any trouble with the attitude from wherever I wanted to throw it. And it might have been one of those things where it was early, where the box surface was smooth enough that as I moved deeper on the lane, it kind of shined up a little bit and kind of helped out there. But I didn't have any trouble filming the attitude at all. I could throw it at second arrow, and it was nice and easy down and in. And then as I started kind of slowing my speed down and increasing the rev rate a little bit once I got deeper, it was still nice and easy the entire way across the lane. And so that's one of those balls that it doesn't fit a specific zone. It would be more dependent on what the lane conditions are doing. But I feel like if I had second arrow with it, I could play second arrow with it. And if I had fifth arrow with it, I could play fifth arrow with it. And so that one's kind of
agree with that.
That one's kind of a tricky one for me, to where it's not necessarily relegated to a certain zone. And that actually makes the optimization a little bit tougher, because with some certain other balls that, okay, I'm in this zone of the lane, this ball is going to be perfect for it. But that one, it's kind of like, well, I mean, it's an option. I guess we'll pull it out of the bag and see. Hi, Mistle.
Yeah. No, it's...
Oh, the Mistle baby.
Optimization for me is a little trickier with this one, just because I intentionally set up my attitude to be a little more of a niche piece, where it's kind of like a little bit clean, fairly tumbly, but not too absurd in either direction, or in any direction, both in terms of length or back end shape. So it's, again, I still need to learn it more, but I'm expecting, like, it's not necessarily something I'd take with me to a league, or if I'm taking a small bag for a short format house shot tournament.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to like a multi-day tournament where I might need that like down lane control coming into play,
that
kind of heavier shape, like heck, when I come out to bowl Swiss trios in was it late September?
Yeah.
The attitude is probably going to make my 9-ball bag for that.
Yeah, that's
because of that trick that it's got that nothing else in my bag really does.
And I think it's one of those that is going to fly under the radar, something like a rocket ship or a winter solid, that's going to kind of...
I'm glad you didn't say winter, but winter solid.
Yeah. Because the winter solid was really good, but it's kind of boring looking, and it never really stood out. The High Road Nano was pretty good too. The rocket ship was really good, but it didn't stand out. There's nothing about it like the MVP that just got down there and turned sideways. It had a definite characteristic. The attitude.
HP5.
Yeah. The attitude is one of those super blue collar balls that's just going to get the job done and going to do it really well, but do it very quietly. There's not going to be a whole lot of pomp and circumstance. It's just going to be one of those balls that. And I'm not sure that it's anything that it's probably not the right type of ball for me lefty, but it's just one of those.
It's got an interesting blend of characteristics that mean it's not going to have a defining attribute for a lot of people, I think. And it's kind of similar to what you described with the IQs in your IQ video.
Yeah, and I think that where the other releases that we have, the Parallax, the Trend, and the Tour Nano Pearl, all have some definite characteristics that you can put your thumb on. The Attitude just has such a depth of characteristics, and the bag of tricks that it has. It's going to probably get the least amount of attention out of all the new releases, but it should get a whole lot closer look, and I'm kind of interested to see as you get to use it more in some of the different places you use it at.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be one of those that just kind of creeps its way into your bag and just stays there because, well, if I need this, well, it can do that, or I think I'm going to need this, well, it can do that too, and it's just going to be one of those balls that you can't find a justification to leave at home.
Oh, wait, it works on this too, huh? Okay,
yeah.
I should take this everywhere. Yeah,
exactly.
I can see it going that way. Billy Langford actually had a really good question in the chat. It was not about the U, thankfully. Okay. He was asking, how does the Attitude compare to the Hustle PBR? I have a hunch on that, but again, this is a case where I'm still learning the ball, so I want to get your thoughts on it first.
Okay, well, first I have to go to Mr. Bill, who just $20
money for Una.
Bail money for Una. Well, yeah, we did show We did a drilling stream for the Rubicon for my Patreon Discord members, and when we were kind of I was in between drilling mine and Angel's, and the dogs all have their crates downstairs that they live in while we're at work or we go out or whatever. Well, they really like their time in their crates. They're all oversized crates, and we have memory foam bath mats in there. And
they're
so
more like palace-sized crates.
Yeah. So they're all literally laying in their crates right now. And this is Yuna's favorite place to be because we're downstairs. It's nice and cool. It's soft on the memory foam and whatever else.
Oh yeah, concrete floor. It's like 20 degrees cooler down here, and we keep it penguin freeze.
Yeah, so Yuna just loves living down here, and so yeah, the joke bail money for Yuna. She's in her crate / cage or whatever you want to call it right now. But yeah, she's happy as a clam. So
I'm just gonna take her up.
okay. Pick which
Happy
one.
doggo is happy.
Yuna?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're gonna get a look at Yuna, but anyway, so so we were talking about the attitude versus the PBR. Was the question? The PBR.
So I have a hunch. I want to see what you say.
Okay. It's really interesting. The PBR kind of feels like a baby IQ Tour Nano. I had thought it was more of a phase 2 type reaction, but it's not quite as continuous. It's not quite as it doesn't have that climbing type of motion to it. It's earlier, it's smoother, it gets down the lane and then kind of settles into the pocket. I think if you gave it enough time, it would roll up, but it's really... I haven't had a whole bunch of time with the PBR yet either, but it's IQ Tourish with a little bit more definition on the back end. It's not necessarily sharper, it just has more definition. Oh, Bork. What you doing, bird dog? Hi, Panda Bear. Hi, Panda. Yeah, she's super, yeah. You can tell she's super thrilled here.
Yeah, she wants to
She
go
is.
back.
Yeah, uh-huh. I know. You're an old pupper. You're an old doggo. Yep, she just wants to go back. She doesn't want the fame and fortune like Missile does. Missile will come over here and pop right at Obork.
Nope.
Yep.
She's not doing it. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna hit her.
Yeah. Measles. You can pick the Measles, or you can pick the chunk up.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Anyhow, the PBR and the attitude definitely plays deeper on the lane. It will pick up and go through it's a lot more continuous, I think, from the deeper angles. It looks similar to the attitude, but the deeper you get, the more the PBR wants to turn into an IQ Tour, and the more the attitude wants to turn into like a phase 2.
Yeah, I can sort of see that.
Hi, Pugger.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah. She's Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's the friction response just feels like night and day between those two balls, even though they're both sanded, not super strong covers, mid RG, low to mid diff. Like the attitude feels much heavier, a little more defined, a little more forward, and versus the PBR does kind of have that same kind of like IQ type feel almost, where it likes being played from straighter angles, or when there's a lot of down lane friction in terms of front to back distance, not just left to right.
Yeah,
So
the PBR is for me a very IQ type of.
you're fine.
Oh.
I do not need to be on camera.
Okay.
Doggo incoming or no?
No, I was
okay.
I was just leaving this back so that it's not in front of the.
Yeah, no, I was trying to
Okay.
get it out of the way of the cord.
Oh, okay.
So.
So you're saying a PBR will be smoother but still strong?
Yes, it's actually it's stronger than my IQ Tour Solid.
Yeah.
It's a couple boards stronger than my IQ Tour Solid, and so yeah, it's smoother, but it's a pretty strong ball. It's not something that's going to pick up and be as, like I said, as windy or continuous as a phase 2, but it's not. Again, it's more IQ Tour Nano for those who remember that ball. Not quite as strong as the Nano, because I don't think that covers as strong. The cores are very similar.
Yeah, I was going to say it. My PBR does not feel as strong as my Nano Pearl either.
No.
Nano Pearl. Like there's definitely a gap in cover strength there.
Yeah, and with the Tour Nano Pearl just doesn't want to stop. The PBR
But I mean,
is
even looking at baseline cover traction front to back,
mhm.
and when it's going to see the lane, I just don't see the same traction out of the PBR as I do the Nano Pro.
Yeah. Now the PBR is really, really readable. It seems it's
Yeah,
kind of
for
a
sure.
I guess you could not necessarily, but kind of meticulous. It looks like it's okay. I'm doing this now. Okay, I'm going to do this now. But it kind of blends everything together without being as like round or kind of blah as the IQ Tour. The IQ Tour kind of does the same thing all the way down the lane.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's very. But the PBR is pretty readable.
Oh, did you want another drink?
Yeah, I'd take something.
Okay. How was that?
It's really good, actually.
Okay. They have different flavors.
And I don't feel like jittery or
Sweet. Okay.
like
I'll take that.
crazy.
Luke, another question from Justin C in the chat. This
Okay.
is totally unrelated. Does the Hustle wrap feel like a baby Idol Pearl or a baby Astro?
Definitely a Baby Idol Pearl. I had thought that it was going to be a Baby Astro when I started, but it's not quite as long, it's not quite as quick, and it doesn't like as much angle as the Astro. Like the Astro will eat all the angle that you throw at it for breakfast. The wrap is definitely a Baby Idol Pearl. From everything on the lake, it does everything the Idol Pearl does. It just less of it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yep. And I just did get.
I need to look a little more at the entry level stuff that's come out recently because I drilled the PBR, and that's kind of it's a fun ball to throw, and it definitely it goes to the pins well, but it's kind of one of those in between balls that I'm not going to throw a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I drilled an Electrify hybrid, but just kind of took a flyer and drilled it with a 5.5-inch pin to pat just for kicks and giggles, and that was not.
That sounds awful on that ball.
Yes, it is more awful than it sounds, if that is possible.
Yeah, because
it goes 50 feet, it thinks about hooking, and then it's like, nah, I'm just going to annihilate the 3/6 pocket now.
Yeah.
So that didn't work out very well.
Which is
the Electrify Pearl and the Hustle Wrap.
Yeah, those are the two that
I kind of want to take a look at those, and I might honestly order one of those just to drill and have another lower diff shiny option because I apparently can never have enough of those.
Yeah, and that's where some of the hustles before have been hit or miss for me. The first two, the Pro and the Say, the Pro was one of my least favorite balls of all time. The Say was marginally better, but as they continued to release them, as soon as they put out the ink, that was like the game changer. That was these are for real now. And then some of them they've tried some different things, and like I said, have been kind of hit or miss. But the wrap and the PBR are a step above. And I think even I didn't get a 3TP, but a lot of people seem to really like that one. That was kind of a different from the Hustle AU. I think was the gold one, and
the AU was the gold one that was like super weak and smooth.
Yeah, but the
and
3TP
the 3TP was a lot faster and more overall than the AU was.
And I think again the PBR and the wrap are stronger than they really should be at that price point. I don't think that they're true light oil balls, but at the same time,
most of the hustles haven't been. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Aside from the POW and the AU.
Yeah. But again, the PBR outhooks my IQ Tour Solid with the same type of idea, and the wrap is kind of right on top of the Emerald. I'm going to be interested to see your thoughts when you get that, but it's like an Idol Pearl it's like if the Idol Pearl felt closer to an IQ Emerald, which is weird to say, but the wrap kind of lives in that. It's more Emerald traction because I think the Idol Pearl is stronger than the Emerald.
Yes, it is.
But if
the Idol Pearl and Emerald are stronger, weaker, the same shape.
Yeah. So yeah.
For a while, I was carrying both of those in my bag for that reason.
Yeah. So if the Idol Pearl was an Emerald, that would be a wrap. Yeah, exactly.
Divide by 6.
Yeah.
Carry the 4.
Yeah.
Multiply by 7. Okay, got it. Yeah.
That common core. We went common core on that one.
Yeah. Craig Carter, what do you guys think of drilling pins at 4 and 8 for right-handers and left-handers? Assuming there are no issues with clipping any holes. I'm assuming that's 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock relative to grip center. And the answer to that is not a layout without knowing what your PAP is and what that's going to do. But generally speaking, that's going to be, if you're putting it at 4 o'clock, I'm just trying to visualize that on a ball.
Yeah, so it's
like a super duper long VAL angle and a pretty short pin to pep, so it's going to make it do nothing, essentially.
Yeah, so that's going to be, for, if you have a higher track, that's about what, that'd be like a 4-inch slightly pinned down for me. So it would be, what that would be for me is like a 4-inch pin, but a 60 VAL.
Now, well, 4 o'clock from your grip center.
Oh, from the grip center.
So that's right and down.
I think he's.
So that's going to be like a.
Yeah, I think he's talking about. Most of the time, when people think of drilling pins, they view it relative to the ring finger, not a grip center. Because I think that's most of the time when, you know, when you do the finger method where you just kind of put your fingers on the ball, you're always looking at it relative to your ring finger. So, not Billy Langford. You'll be throwing it like Chaz Brewer before long. I wish. Chaz throws it amazing. I do have my ball roll is pretty close to Chaz. He just throws it faster and he rolls it more. Chaz throws it pretty amazing. So I would hope so. But yeah, short pin, grip center, old drilling before dual angles. Okay, so yeah, grip center.
Yeah, that's basically. I mean,
so that's almost like
you're essentially getting into a mirror flipped full roller type of layout almost. With that type of setup, which that's going to just make it like super duper smooth and pretty short pin, so it's not
really
going to flare a lot either.
really controllable, really kind of a round shape, not going to do a whole lot, which actually would be. I commented that Hank Boomershine always has, when you watch the 5-way and 6-way, 7-way storm videos, his layouts are always frickin' wild. They're like 2.5 by 6.5 by 3 or something like that, and that's just more mitigating the amount of ball reaction you have on the left side of the lane. Hi, Mistel. You want to come up again? Okay. Hi, baby. Yep.
Mistel.
Yep, you like camera time, don't you? Uh-huh, there's people talking to you. Uh-huh, hi. Yes, uh-huh.
Jay Miner asked, I get your Nano Pearl or Phase 2? I actually directly compared the Nano Pearl to my Phase 2 in my review video, or in the video that I just posted.
Yeah, how did that work out?
So the Phase 2 is actually more forward through the pins than the Nano Pearl by a fairly substantial margin, but it's still really smooth.
I would believe that.
Yeah, the Nano Pearl feels like it's a little easier through the fronts, but without missing, but it still has enough cover to be able to pick up. But it's also like the Phase 2, like, yes, it's a windy, climbing, continuous type of shape, but it's still like rolling forward through the pins, if that makes sense. Versus once the Nano Pearl picks up, it doesn't get into a roll quite as early and is much more of a just like a banana shaped arc.
Yeah.
Down lane is kind of how I see it. That just kind of keeps on climbing, keeps on continuing.
Yeah.
So it's little different shapes. I think the answer comes down to what else is in your bag, honestly. Let's say for the sake of hypothesis, you have a MVP attitude and let's say an Omega Crux. So those are both like, neither of those are like monster directional change. They're both a little more forward and rolly through the pins. I would probably go with the Nano Pearl there, just because it's going to create a little more directional change. Versus if you already have, say, a UFO and an astrophysics, and I'll go with a Phase 2 in the middle there. Because the Phase 2 rolls a little more and blends the lane out a little better versus the Nano Pearl. So it's contextual.
Okay.
I think it's a short version.
Yep. Have the IQ Tour Emerald, Crux Prime, and Idol.
Emerald
So
Prime, Idol.
yeah, that's a lot of smooth stuff. They're
Yeah,
different levels of hook, but it's a lot of pretty smooth stuff.
I would put it. I would be looking at an Astro or a Parallax in there instead
Misto.
of
What about this?
like something this a cleaner cover than the Prime and the Idol, but more core than the Emerald.
Mm-hmm.
Is generally what I would be looking at there.
Hi, Misto. You want to come up?
So,
All right. Come here, Misto. You coming? Come on, all the way up. Come on, buddy. High five. High five. High five. Yes, I know. Good high five. Good Mistos. Yes, you're funny.
Let's see. Justin C asked, anybody still use the Rico layout? Bill kind of partially answered that already. True Rico requires a weight hole, which you can't do anymore. I've never drilled a ball with a pin that far down. I don't really feel like I need it that much.
Yeah.
I've started to experiment with short pin a little bit. I really need to blend the lane out, but that's just not something I get to all that often.
Yeah, and I think you can still Rico most of the time. And on an ASIM, you probably, if it's a short pin, you could probably get away with it. But on a symmetric, if you don't put a weight hole in it, I mean, you can. Rico is really just the pin in the center of the in your grip center. It doesn't really matter. I mean, they used to put the center, the CG like straight out 90 degrees to the right, but CG no matter. So you can really put that anywhere you need to put it to. If you drill the thumb a little bit deeper, because that's probably going to be the thumb, you know, assuming that you have a 4.5-ish inch span and you've got a 2.5 inch pin or even a 3-inch pin, just go a little bit deeper on the thumb. You're going to be, and if you put the CG down by the thumb, you're going to be taking the top weight straight out.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Fruit asked a question. Have we discussed the Rubicon at all? No, we have not, aside from briefly acknowledging that it exists.
yeah.
I mean, the video embargo date, I believe, is this coming Friday, the 14th.
Yeah, it's next Friday, so...
Yep, which, my birthday, by the way. Happy early birthday to me.
Cool.
So
that's right, because my birthday's on Saturday.
Yeah, happy early birthday to you, too.
Yeah.
So we aren't allowed to share video until then. I don't even have mine yet. Mine ships out on Monday. I'm not even I know it exists. I know what Schlimm has said about it, where it's kind of an updated Idol Pro, but with some asymmetry built into the core and a little more surface, essentially. In terms of what that practically does, I haven't seen anything to be able to get a good beat on it yet.
Yeah, and
I am on paper, though, the idea of a mild asymmetry core that still acts kind of like the Idol core, but with kind of a mid-strength cover is kind of in that bridge ball zone that the Idol Pro was. That's a very exciting prospect for me.
Yeah,
so I'm almost wondering if it might end up kind of in an Alpha Crux type of space where it's a strong but not super strong type of cover.
It's a
strong but not super strong ASIM core that still arcs a decent amount, but still hits the mid lane a little bit harder.
Yeah,
so it might end up being one of those jack of all trades type of balls, but that's all rampant speculation. I haven't even thrown the ball yet. I haven't seen it, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so generally they want us to wait until about 3 weeks before the release date to start talking about something, because we just had a bunch of balls released to where you can actually go buy them yesterday. And so there's not a whole lot of point in talking about the new ones much before you can pre-order one, or, you know, be realistically close enough to where you're thinking, okay, well, I need to start socking away some money for the next couple weeks. So next Saturday, if we get back, there's a tournament we have in Kansas City at 1 o'clock. It's limited to 72 bowlers, and it's only a 6-gamer. And so assuming that we can get started on time and get out of there at a decent time, I might do the live stream at 8 instead. That's probably what I'll schedule it for. If everything goes according to plan, and if I suck and don't make the stepladder, which would be according to plan, then we'll be home in time, and I will have my video up next. I'll have my video and Angel's video for the Rubicon up next Friday, and then we'll talk about it in the live stream next Saturday. And like I said earlier, I should have DH Bowling, Darren and Haley from DH on, and I should have the first of several collaboration videos coming up with them as well. So Rubicon stuff will be next weekend, but for now, the IQ Tour Nano Pearl Parallax MVP Attitude and Trend released yesterday. I will do some Sport Essentials videos. I have a bunch of videos to write. But we'll have some stuff coming out next weekend. But we're starting to get back into bowling. Actually, the draft for my Thursday night draft league is on Thursday. We start our Friday night league on Friday. Then we have tournament Saturday, Sunday. And then the following weekend, we start our shootouts back up on that Friday. We also start league on Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, tournament, Friday night after league. And then the following weekend, there's another doubleheader tournament in Kansas City again. So in addition to all these videos I'm supposed to make somehow in the middle of all that. So
Yeah, good luck.
yeah. All right, so
Mono Chin, how do I know when to stop using a bowling ball?
yeah.
I think there's like 3 different ways you could. Got about 200 games on a high road.
Oh, that kind of stop using a bowling ball. When it
Yeah,
starts
so
sucking.
overall lifespan.
Yeah. When it starts sucking. So that's really different from ball to ball, and some balls are, the more dead they get, the better they are. Like the original Taboo is still my favorite ball of all time. Some other stuff's catching up, but the original Taboo was not legendary until I got about 120 games on it. It was good because the gas mask core is one of the best cores of all time, period. And that, I can't remember what cover was on it, but it was pretty good. And it was just one of those
Taboo was the gas mask core, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Taboo was the gas mask core from the Black Widows, and so it was basically like a stronger OG Black Widow.
Yeah.
And so when you take a solid, when you take that good of a core and you put a solid cover on it, you're getting like Codex, Alpha Crux, just that kind of goodness. But once it kind of died a little bit and settled down, all of a sudden I had like this. Imagine like an IQ Tour Solid level strength ball with the gas mask core. Like,
that sounds pretty good.
That's what it turned into. All of a sudden, it was super usable on everything. It was smooth and controllable, but I could actually use it deeper on the lane than I could an IQ Tour Solid. And so sometimes stuff gets really, really great once it dies. And there's other balls that are great, but once you get 100 games on them, 150 games on them, then they start kind of losing their hit at the pocket more than anything. They don't necessarily start reacting bad. They just don't
go through the pins.
Yeah, they don't go through the pins right.
That's why I just roll a fresh phase 2 every 150 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a good point, though, is that it does vary some ball to ball. I think Mr. Bill had the original Match Solid. He got like 1,000+ games on his and still used it regularly because that ball with a settled cover worked really, really well. Mm-hmm. Some bowlers in general prefer covers that have been beaten up a little bit. Like that's something Kyle Troop mentioned to me, is he likes using those more worn covers.
Yeah.
Because they're a little more slow and predictable down lane, and he can create the shape with softer speed and more hand if he needs it.
Yeah.
But you'd rather have the smoother reaction and an extra bit of control.
Yeah, you can control them a whole lot better. They're not as quick on friction, so you still got the same ball motion or the same shape, and I think that's why the IQ Tours have been so popular for so long, because they act like a stronger ball kind of died a little bit.
Yep.
So
yeah, there was a point in time where I was actually carrying a pair of Phase 2s around for that kind of similar type of reason. Mm-hmm. Where I had one that I had drilled more recently, I kept with surface on it. Then I had another one with like 150, 200 games on it that was lane shined like crazy. Uh-huh. And I was essentially using that like an IQ Tour over 20 more points to diff.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get down the lane and like be really, really smooth off the spot.
That was that Phase 2 versus Phase 2, the old versus new video that I did.
Yeah, that's a good illustration of that.
Yeah, the new one was a little too assertive. And the old one, because it was a little bit weaker and smoother from the use, it was more controllable. And the new one, it just, okay, well, it needs 20 games to settle down, and then after that, you're going to have 130 games of greatness.
Of awesomeness, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's whenever I drill a fresh phase 2, I don't bother carrying around the standard asymmetric piece for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I still legitimately think that a dead fresh cover phase 2 might be the strongest ball coming out of Utah right now.
Yeah.
It's the amount of traction and hook and directional change that ball creates when it's dead fresh is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. The wife's got a blue team storm ball.
You need to put those in.
Okay, well, you go through plastic balls faster than I go through anything.
No. And we made a deal years ago that I get a new one every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
drill
so
them in every 5 months because they keep cracking on me. But that's probably my fault for throwing them 24 miles an hour at 10 pence. But
Well,
that'd
and
be
I
part of
did
it,
tell
but-
you that clear one, the white one that you got me,
Mhm.
when you drilled it, the bits were borrowed bits.
Oh, yeah, the bits were dull.
So it's always not been the right fit.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, they were... Even when you sharpen bits, they're not supposed to shrink or anything.
No, you were using borrowed bits.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm just saying that, bits do kind of change, even though when you sharpen them, you don't technically take anything off of them. There's no material that, a 31 seconds is still a 31 seconds, but there are small little variances, and especially between sharp bits and dull bits, even if they're the same size. If the bit's dull, the hole will end up being a little bit smaller just because it's not cutting through the material quite as well. And even though a bowling ball is not soft, it's one of those things where a duller bit will result in a slightly smaller feeling hole, which when you're putting grips in there, it can affect some some things. It'll be a truer cut with a sharper bit, I guess, is the best way to describe it. So
So I said I would tolerate that one because it wasn't that huge of a deal, so I tolerated it.
yeah. So yeah, we might have another impromptu drilling stream
nice.
tomorrow night. I've got a board meeting that I have to go to in the afternoon and figure out how to film, but
You have this and you have my emerald.
yeah.
Because my emerald got eaten up.
So yeah,
Oh,
we've got
wow.
2 new for her, and then I've got a fresh new Utah ink, Hustle ink, that I'm
Ooh, nice.
getting ready to drill so that we can
Yeah.
see how that compares to the wrap and the PBR. Also, the new electrifies too. So
Yeah. One other side point, and I know we've talked about this some on the Discord as well. Hopefully, y'all can see this okay. But you can see how there's kind of a gap around the grips
vacuum.
on my. This is my MVP attitude. That's what's called the vacuum grip drilling method, where I'm actually drilling a larger hole and then using smaller grips so I have some space to kind of essentially form around my fingers a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so one thing I've noticed is when I was using 31 hole, which that's the outside diameter of the inserts.
Yeah.
Is using that the whole way down. There's a lot more variance ball to ball in terms of feel because of, maybe I get a little bit, just like a micro bit of a little bit extra material out in one ball versus another. Or if I swap grips and I don't get every bit of residue of the old grips out, then that's going to impact the feel as well.
Yeah.
I have zero issues ball to ball feel wise with vacuum grips.
Yeah, because it's all on.
So because there's so much wiggle room between the grip and the side and the actual ball itself that you don't really run into that issue. So it is a different feel, but that's one thing that I have noticed is it helps blend that out, and I don't have an issue with it. So
there's a.
Let's see.
Yeah, Jay Miner said he's going to go with the Phase 2. That's never a bad choice.
That is never a bad choice. I'm the biggest fan of that ball on the planet.
Weston, I'm getting into drilling my own stuff, so those are super helpful. Talking about the drilling streams. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more. And drilling a plastic ball is a little bit. I tend to go a little bit slower drilling the plastic balls because, especially with the clear cover balls, I remember it used to be awful drilling the balls that had like the Budweiser bottle inside or the skull inside or whatever else. The bits have to be sharp, and you have to take your time. If you go too fast, you're going to chip the living crap out of those things.
Yes, I actually talked with Hank Brimmerstein about that.
Oh, okay.
This was last year, and the way he described it was that actually, because of the materials they have to put in the cover chemically to make it clear, it makes it a harder material.
Yeah, harder and
even
more
though it's
brittle.
the same base. So it's actually like the clear polys will actually hook a little bit less than an ice, for example, because of that. But counterpoint to that is why you say you have to go a little bit slower.
Yeah.
It is a more brittle material.
Yeah, you have sharp bits, and you got to go slow.
Yeah. But yes, Jay, to get back to that, I've drilled 7 or 8 phase 2s over the last 3 years. It's probably my favorite ball of all time, so no objections there. That ball's amazing.
Yeah, and Angel did post, if you haven't hit the notification bell, there's a notification bell that will send you a notification every time I go live or post a video up or something like that. So if you want to see those types of impromptu streams live when I don't necessarily have them scheduled, then you'll get notified whenever I go live on something like that. And seeing as how I have my own press now, it's a whole lot easier to do stuff like that versus trying to do it in a pro shop.
Oh, that was miserable. It was a good idea, but that was really hard.
Yeah, but this is a whole lot more flexibility. And plus, you can see the dogs just kind of lounging around. And if I do another... we got boxes laying everywhere, so that's something we need to tighten. We had it pretty tidied up, and then now we're trying to shuffle a bunch of stuff around, and a lot of my righty stuff is going and being replaced by lefty stuff, and so it's a little bit of a mess down here. But
well, part of it was you were organizing the balls, and I was trying to fill in the spreadsheet for the serial numbers.
Yeah.
So between the two of us, we destroyed it.
Let's see, and then the other one, what would be a good medium dry complement to the phase 2 that's controllable?
Yep.
That's difficult.
Emerald.
The answer is always emerald. You should know this, James.
I think that the
PBR... we have to keep going back to that.
The PBR is too strong.
Because it's hilarious?
And I think...
No, it's not.
How many times?
That was a very expensive lesson. Can that not be enough? Okay, to loop people in for the inside joke on this. I bowled Kyle Troop on Dougie Vision. Was this last weekend or two weekends ago?
Yes.
Best of 7 for $1,000, and he swept me with an IQ Emerald. So, and then I went back to that same center for a couple tournaments the next weekend. Decided to actually take my Emerald with me and made a whole lot of money. So now Angel and everybody else gives me crap for, hey James, you should get an Emerald.
Well, and I gave you crap before because you would post in Discord, what should I take? And nearly every time I would say Emerald, and you're like, no, I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bird dog.
Ay.
So I did try and save you from yourself.
Yeah.
Hop on Warzone.
Anyways.
Yes, go ahead.
All of this to say, I do think the Emerald is a option for a medium dry complement to the phase 2 that is controllable. I think the answer really depends on your speed and rev rate quite a bit and how much you can force directional change with your release. I think that the Hustle Ink is actually a really good choice there. I know it's been out for a few years, but it's just one of those balls that works on a lot of stuff a lot of the time when there's not as much volume out there.
And I'm gonna be.
I know you mentioned the Hustle Wrap as well, Luke, and
I think that's
I haven't done one yet.
I think it's a little too strong, but I'm gonna be more interested in what you think about the Electrified Pearl because it's a baby emerald. So if we're talking about something for true like light conditions, that's the controllable type of idea. I think you're going to be really surprised by the Electrified Pearl.
I can kind of see that actually.
The hybrid,
again,
the hybrid's a weird one. It's a very specific use ball for me. It's kind of like the Idol Pro where it loves second to third arrow, but outside of that, it's like a toddler in a supermarket that didn't get the cereal they wanted. But the Electrified Pearl is a baby emerald, just flat out, straight up baby emerald.
Yeah.
So
I'll throw one out there.
Yeah.
All road.
all road. The cover's a little too strong, but it is kind of smooth at the same time. So mine actually was quite a bit weaker feeling than I expected it to be. I always expected, okay, I'm going to throw it, and it's going to boom, and I never saw the boom. I never saw the... It just went down there and went, eh. It was kind of like the Hustle... what was the one that I didn't like? Well, yeah, which Hustle is?
Pro, say.
It was
Those
the
are the
hybrid,
first two.
the HYB.
Oh yeah, the baby IQ Salt.
Yeah, it was kind of early and smoothish and kind of
Yeah.
blah. So that's kind of what the all-road did for me. Now, for somebody like her, it looks great for her. It looks great for Brad Miller. He throws his
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Well, I followed you. You went out to just plain practice.
My all-road my all-road was like the Parallaxes for James.
I followed you. You
Yeah.
went out to practice and you destroyed some lanes, and then I pulled out the all road and played on it for like another 5 games, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, your all road has some lane shine on it, right, Angel?
Correct.
Yeah. I think if it was factory, you wouldn't have seen that quite as much. But I think
No, I did not.
seeing the
agree.
experience I've had with the IQ Nano Pearl, I think if I were to get another all road, I would like it more than my first one. Now that I kind of see how to use like cleaner nano hybrid with symmetric inside of it. if that makes
Okay.
sense.
2 quick questions, or not? The other one, Aaron A. pointed it out. And I saw the question, we just hadn't gotten to it yet. But Shred the Rack first. How would you compare the Hustle PBR Wraps Ink to the IQ Tour Nano Pearl Emerald? Does it make sense to have both sets of balls? I think that once you add the wrap, once you add PBR Wrap Ink IQ Tour Emerald, there's all kinds of overlap all over the place with those. The Nano Pearl separates itself from all of them
Yeah,
a
I
fair
agree
bit.
with that.
So Ink and IQ Tour are overlap for days. The Wrap and the Emerald has a ton of overlap. The PBR is a little stronger than the IQ Tour, but it's got the same type of flavor to it. But yeah, the Nano Pearl is kind of a different animal.
Yeah.
So, next question. Build a 6-ball arsenal for league conditions. Do any of the new orbs make the bag? The IQ Tour Nano Pearl, definitely. That's
Yeah.
definitely going in. And I would say for my 6-ball, now that I have to use plastic, which is going to throw a wrench into everything.
How the turns are tabled.
Yeah. The IQ bag is totally going to be a thing. So I'm taking Tour Solid, Emerald, Tour Nano Pearl, period. And then the other, I'm going to take the Electrify Pearl and the Hybrid, probably. But at the same time, I was sitting there thinking about this, is that, I have a Wild Streak that's pretty amazing on the left side of the lane, too. I also have a ProMotion that's pretty heckin' awesome. The Wrap is a little too strong, but I would like to take that along, too. But I have several lefty balls that... I also have a High Road Pearl that's waiting for a Thumb Slug up there too, and then I'm drilling the Hustle Ink probably tomorrow. So I have
I'm
heckin'
thinking
confusion.
through. I don't know what I'd do either. Like, there's 4 or 5 different ways I could go with mine.
Well, I think that
We need more
once...
bags, that's the answer.
Well, and the thing is, I think when you get a wrap...
Yeah.
When you get a wrap and an Electrify Pearl, that's going to throw some wrenches in there, because those are...
Aaron did say 6 balls, so more
Yeah.
bags isn't really an option, Angel. Just to
Yeah.
He
clarify.
didn't ask me. He asked you two.
Well,
Same.
you're included, so congratulations.
Well, I don't have half of those, so it's okay.
Tony,
Gosh,
will
I'm
you
struggling with
include
that.
balls from your previous sports collection? I'm not really doing a new sports collection. I'm doing an addition. I'm doing where would the new ones fit in terms of which slots they'd be in. So I'm more adding on than replacing or revising. So
So
anyhow,
are you going to end up doing the Build a Bag series that I had asked about?
probably, but I've got so many things on the board that,
So then I can make videos then.
yeah. I'm gonna do some optimizing too. I have way more ideas than I have time to make videos for. And now if they stop releasing balls for 2 minutes, because I've had a bunch of reviews to do, and then I've got the collaborations with DH Bowling, and then I've got the Sport Collection edition to do, and then I have a few more comparison balls.
You might want to go to the philosopher question. You'll like that one.
That I think I saw that
yeah.
one.
No. Have you tried the original phase? If so, how does it compare to the Emerald?
The original phase is interesting. It was one of my. I think I had 3 of them, and then I've got one staring at me here. And it was.
Two different ones.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was the original. It was the original first pour because I had one lefty, and then when I was lefty a couple years ago, and then I had a 14-pounder righty when I went back, and then I think I drilled a 15-pounder when I went back because I tried 14s for a little while and they were all right, but so I think, yeah, I've had 3 of them. Now they all reacted the same, but they're not very emerald-ish. The original phase, the original batch original phase was really freaking weird. It's like
it was like super early, super smooth.
It's like you
clean.
mirror shined a Crux Prime is what it was like. So pretty heavy rolling, but round and smooth, and I really liked it. But yeah, it was, yeah. So not very emerald light, kind of, yes, because it had that early rolling kind of
Closer to a
controlly
marble pearl than an
look
emerald,
to
I'd
it.
say.
But yeah,
the traction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then the second batch acted much more R2S-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
ones that are brighter colors.
Yeah, the second batch phase 2 was basically a Sonic. It was pretty similar to that, a little bit punchier. But yeah, the original phase is very parallax-ish, actually. It either needed to be earlier or needed to back in more. Are you making the Sport Essentials kind of like Tamer did, where he now tells you what slot in the arsenal the ball would fit? Is that almost what you're thinking? It's more of a college bowler type of look towards. They have their 1 ball and their 2 ball and their 3 ball, 4 ball, 5 ball in plastic. And so the Sport Essentials are basically telling you, okay, so the parallax, depending on the strength of a bag you're taking, it would either be, for example, it would be a 1 ball or a 2 ball. If you're bowling on drier, shorter conditions, the parallax would be a 1 ball at the top of the bag. If you're bowling a little bit more volume, it's still pretty strong, but it would be it's not UFO type of look. It would be a 2 ball. But that's more or less what I'm updating. I looked at the current arsenal as of November, December, whatever, when I put that series out, and said, okay, well, this would be these types of balls like UFO, nuclear cell, gravity evolved. Those would all be kind of your 1 ball slots. And for me, and then I kind of built a bag out of what I would take with those. But
Ryan, I just linked the Luke's first Sport Essentials collection, like the entire video series. I just linked that in the chat for you as a reference point.
Cool.
So it's definitely it is a little different than how Tamer approaches his, but
yeah,
the
he does
end up fairly similar.
Yeah, mine's more the Sport Essentials are more generalistic. It's the ball up, ball down kind of 1 ball. You can have a bunch of different shapes, zones, whatever else. The way that colleges kind of stack them is more by hook potential more than your 1 ball is going to be a strong ball. The 2 ball is going to be a little bit weaker. It's going to be kind of like your ball up, ball down idea, which doesn't take a whole lot of. Tamer's is more specific, where he looks at, sharp, strong sharp or strong defined or
early, medium, and late, and then whether it's more defined or more smooth off the friction.
Yeah, so he describes shapes more than what the Sport Essentials is describing hook potentials more than anything.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that have asked.
They can frequently land in similar spots, though, I think.
Yeah, they can. But a lot of people have asked, okay, well, would the trend be a 2 ball or a 3 ball? And so they kind of are interested in that. And so that's kind of the the idea behind that is what number would it be, and would it be viable? I don't think something like the Trend would see as much action on tougher conditions as something like an IQ Emerald. Even though they have the same cover stock, the Emerald is a little bit more controllable. The Trend would have to be in... It'd have to be if you open the lanes up, or if you got some good friction on there, you had a little bit of room to work with, and you could afford having something that flippy, I guess. Something that clean and flippy, which most of the time you don't want clean, polished reaction on tight conditions left to right. So, but yeah, that's kind of the direction I'm going with that, so... Alright, so it is 9 o'clock. Is after 9 o'clock.
Holy crap, that 2 hours went that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we're going to go on ahead and turn it off here. Like I said, I am eyeballing a stream next weekend. Probably be at 8 o'clock Central instead of 7. With DH Bowling. For most, if not all of it, talking about that. Hopefully, I was hoping to have a couple of the collaboration videos up this weekend, but that didn't actually happen. So next weekend probably work out better for that anyway. Thanks again to James for running my chat and everything.
Good thing. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
And so
What
that's...
way to talk bowling if you can't actually bowl?
Yeah, so that's kind of the...
Hopefully, I think I've got a tournament next weekend, so I will try my best to be in the chat, but not 100% positive.
Well, and then to mark calendar, September 11th.
Oh
yeah, the big stream.
Yeah. All right, so everybody that's still here, you're going to want to listen to this. We have a live stream on Friday night, September 11th. In Kansas City, we have kind of like it's like Greater Ozarks or Greater Tulsa Open. It's a big kind of team double singles tournament in Kansas City, and James is coming in for it, but we also have Tamer from Tamer Bowling coming in for it too. And so we're going to have a live stream with me and James and Tamer together on that Friday night, September 11th. Mr. Bill's going to be here too. Yeah, if you see Mr. Bill Walker that's in the chat, he's going to be here. If you are in Storm Rotor Grip Bowling Balls for sale, Tani Shabani is going to be here too with his stupid ass...
Yeah, that's right. I forgot Tani's going to come out.
With that stupid ass mustache.
Stop it!
He has got the cheesiest mustache I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
Look at me!
No, you'll definitely pull a Christmas Story and shoot my eye out with that thing. But
quit being a baby.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Tani's gonna be here, and we have some other. I mean, we have people coming from all over the country, really. So, but yes, that is going to be the stream. Me and James and Tamer at the very least. So.
And we're doing it at a bowling center, and we will be bowling in the background when you guys are talking.
Yeah, because they have this at Aaron's Family Fun Center in Belton. They have this kind of party room where they have 4 lanes that are separated from the rest of the bowling alley.
It's kind of a lounge essentially.
Yeah, it's a lounge. I think it might be 6.
It's 6. It's 6.
It's 6.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, they have a little lounge area that's kind of separate for like private parties and whatever else. So it's kind of a posh little place in there. So, Luke's being shot and nobody's donated. I walked right into that one. Mr. Bill did send $20 to get Panda out of jail. So, but Panda's perfectly happy in jail, and she would spend all of her time. All the doors are open, but they just like laying in there. That's kind of their happy place. So.
They liked it before the mats, and now they love it with the mats.
Oh yeah, yep. They've all got their own. Like I said, they've all got their own personal memory foam bath mats in there. So they're definitely not hurting.
Yeah.
So. All right. So. Thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk. We'll have Rubicon reviews next weekend. We'll be talking to DH Bowling, and then we're only a month away from the KC Open, which ought to be a whole lot of fun. And then we'll have a big live stream. And I don't know why I haven't had Tamer on one of these streams yet.
I don't know either.
Because sometimes we get totally opposite reads on bowling balls, but other times we get very similar reads, and it's interesting that when we get similar reads on stuff, we can say the same things but different ways. He notices different things than what I notice, but some of that might be due to lefty versus righty thing, but so yeah, it'll be really interesting to have the three of us sitting there talking about stuff, so I'm really looking forward to that, and it's a little too soon to be getting excited about it, but that's going to be a really fun weekend. So
Yeah, it's about, what, 5 weeks away, I think?
yep, definitely mark that
It'll
on
be a
your,
fun time, yeah.
Yep, mark that on your calendars.
I gotta
So
load up my bag, and I'm just gonna bring a bunch of darts and a bunch of cookies, and we'll have fun.
yeah, it's going to be
That sounds good to me.
interesting. So. All right, well, thanks everybody. We will see you next time. Yeah, probably even see you tomorrow. So if everybody's, not everybody's free around 5, 6, 7 o'clock or something, I'm probably going to do a drilling stream because I have 3 to drill. So
I will. My last week of my summer trios league is tomorrow night, so I will
okay.
probably not be here for that.
Okay.
So I'm only averaging 256 in that league right now.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Oh, right.
Yeah, it went down last week after I shot 740.
Gosh. What are you throwing?
Yeah.
Share what you're throwing.
Pretty much. I think. Let's see. I missed week 1, and we bowled 5 out of 7 weeks. I think so. Out of the 12 games, I think 10 of them have been with an Astro or a Code Black.
Okay.
And I tried to force a phase 2 for 1 game. And then this past week, I shot 740 because I was on the hardest pair in the entire building. I had to use my IQ Nano Pro for a game and a half to try and burn a hook spot. And then went to the Astro from there. So, taking... Let's see, what am I taking tomorrow night? IQ Nano Pro, Hustle PBR, Astro, Emerald, I think the Trend, and then my plastic ball.
Yeah.
So, basically... bunch of not super strong stuff. It's a place that hooks a lot, but there's some hold in the front part of the lane.
Okay.
So basically, I get to just fire it at the friction and just carry everything. It's a lot of fun. So thankfully, I'm not getting to 21 games, so my UBA average will be safe at 240 instead of doing 255.
There you go.
Emerald. Oh my gosh, shut up, guys. I don't want to hear about the Emerald. Leave me alone. But yes, it is going with me. I'll probably if I have a chance, I want to give it a look tomorrow night because I haven't thrown it there in that building in a while. So
Cool. All right. Well,
yeah.
Thanks everybody. We're out. I should have another video or 2 up tomorrow. I don't know exactly what I'm going to work on yet, but I've got plenty of stuff on the board. And then next week will be next week, and then we'll keep making more stuff. So thanks, James, again. Thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll see y'all later.
Talk to y'all later.